Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Gishki Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for October 2023. The Gishkis are one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. I've been playing them for so many years, and I always like to keep the deck updated whenever I get a chance to. For a good while, I was running Gishki sprites, but the main play and powerhouse of the deck was to use Sprite Elf to utilize your many different Gishki monsters that had abilities when summoned down to the field. So I went back to just using the pure version of the deck. Still a very fun version, using all of the newer support we received from Photon Hypernova a good while back. Just like to update with some of the changes I made to the deck with some of the cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. We're running 2 copies of Gishki Naramanus. You can ritual summon this card with any Gishki ritual spell. If this card is ritual summoned, you can target one water monster in your graveyard, special summon it. It cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summon from the extra deck. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can return one Gishki ritual monster. You control the hand. If you do, negate the activation and shuffle it into the deck. So it doesn't even destroy the monster, it just shovels it back into the deck. And being able to summon back water monsters in your graveyard onto the field gives you other resources, including ritual monsters that you may have already ritual summoned using some of your other cards. So you can even use the ritual monster you have on the field for the cost for your ritual summon of Naramanus, and then Naramanus can summon it back, and then you can also make use of that Gishki monster's effects, and also it can be the bounce target for Naramanus to stop your opponent's monster effect. I also run 2 copies of Gishki Zeal Gigas. You can ritual summon this card with any Gishki ritual spell. Once per turn, you can pay 1,000 life points to draw 1 card and reveal it. If it was a Gishki monster, shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck. So you even have to shuffle back your own cards. So remember that. You still have a pay 1,000 draw card thanks to this card. But what's great is, as I said before, if you summon out Zeal Gigas, have the additional ritual spell, and then you can use it for the full summon of Naramanus. Naramanus can then summon back the Zeal Gigas onto the field as the additional monster for the monster negate, or you can even overlay the 2 together for your rank 10 Xyz plays, with the last of the Gishki ritual monsters being 1 copy of Gishki Guskraken. You can ritual summon this card with any Gishki ritual spell. When it's ritual summoned, you can look at 2 random cards in your opponent's hand, then shuffle one of them into the deck. So it gives you options just to take away resources from your opponents. It's not the main play style of the deck, that's why I'm only running the 1 copy. I would say you have more powerhouses in the form of Naramanus and Zeal Gigas, but just the 1 additional copy. It's good when you go first against your opponent, just to take that 1 potential card away that they needed for their play. For the other effect monsters in the main deck, 3 copies of Gishki Grimness. If you ritual summon exactly 1 water ritual monster with a card effect that requires the use of monsters, this card can be used as the entire tribute. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon 1 Gishki monster from your deck except for Gishki Grimness. Also, you can only declare attacks with ritual monsters until the end of this turn. You can only use this effect of Grimness once per turn, but your main target for Grimness is your Gishki Abyss, because then you have an additional search off of Gishki Abyss when you summon this card, and then you have 2 monsters on the field, which you can either use for link summon plays, or you can use Grimness for the full ritual cost of your Gishki water ritual monster. And then also 3 copies of Gishki Abyss. Once again, with this card, if it is summoned, you can add 1 Gishki monster with 1,000 or less defense from your deck to your hand, except for Gishki Abyss. So you even have searches in the form of Gishki Zeal Gigas, having 0 defense. You can add it off of this card as well. You have the option to add cards like Gishki Grimness, but like I said before, a lot of times you just want to be able to add your special summon off of Gishki Abyss with your Gishki Grimness, because then you'll have more of the monster resources on the field. This is just so we have multiple targets for us to summon out in the form of our go-to level 2 monster. And also the 3 copies of Gishki Shadow, another card that can be searched with Abyss. If you ritual summon a ritual monster, it can be used as the entire tribute, and you can discard this card to add 1 Gishki ritual spell from your deck to your hand, which we are running 2 copies of, which are the Gishki Aquamir and the Gishki Necromir, depending on the ritual summon you want to go for. You have a discard cost. It's not a once per turn, so the multiples of shadows you have in your hand, the easiest way to get back the ritual spell for your search, since you can also shuffle the ritual spell back in into the main deck from the graveyard by adding back a Gishki Ritual Monster from your graveyard to your hand. And 3 copies of Gishki Vision, same card effect as Gishki Shadow, aside from the fact that you have to discard Gishki Vision to search for a Gishki Ritual Monster. So you have more search power if you have Shadow and Vision in your hand. Each one of them can be the searches needed for the particular monster or ritual spell that you want, with the lower numbers for our Gishki monsters being 2 copies of Gishki Beast. Very similar to Grimness. Grimness summons from the deck, while you can use Gishki Beast to summon back some of the Gishki monsters that you summoned onto the field, and then reuse their card effects once more from the graveyard, summoning a level 4 lower Gishki monster in your graveyard, and then you special summon that target in defense. You can also use your Gishki Beast to summon cards like Shadow back, and then you also have your rank 4 Xyz plays to go into. And then also 3 copies of Beautiful Princess. When this card is normal or special summon, you can banish this card to special summon 1 level 4 lower fish type monster from your deck, except for Beautiful Princess. You can use this effect of Beautiful Princess once per turn. A quicker search for our Gishki Grimness. Since it is a fish monster, you can just banish this, summon out Grimness, and then have the additional special summon power of Grimness on the field. So just think of it as another additional search card to get Grimness onto the field. With the last of the monsters being the 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Just a couple of hand traps. You're going to want to invest a lot of the cards in this deck into your actual ritual plays, so you don't really want too many hand traps to take up spots in the deck, because then you won't be able to go for some of the bigger plays to rely on. For our spells, we are running 3 copies of Gishki Aquamirror. If we had more options to search out this spell, then I would run, lower numbers, but we only really have our Gishki Shadow to be able to search this card out, which can be searched with other cards. We just need those options and the potential for multiple Aquamirrors in our hand. If we have to recycle the one back from the graveyard, it can use for the ritual summon of a Gishki monster, and then you can return this card from the graveyard to the deck to select one Gishki ritual monster in your graveyard and return to the hand, which is not a once return either, so you can use it multiple times if you can go through your ritual monsters as well for the add back to your hand. And that's what I said before, then being able just to go for another ritual play if you have a second Aquamirror in hand. With the 1 Gishki Necromirror, it's really just the one we need for the deck. It can be used to ritual summon any of our Gishki ritual monsters. You must tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal exactly the level of 1 ritual monster you ritual summon, or you can tribute 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. If you ritual summon and use this card, you lose life points equal to the original attack of the ritual summon monster. And if this card is in your graveyard, you can target 1 Gishki monster in your graveyard, place that card on the top of the deck, and place this card on the bottom of the deck. So it's recycle power, but it also helps to power our Zeal Gygas, because then we'll pay 1,000, have the exact card we need on the top of the deck to draw and reveal, since we put it back with Gishki Necromirror. And being able to take away our opponent's monsters is all the scarier, because then that's just an additional resource that we tributed for our own monster. And then also 3 copies of Focused Aquamirror. You add 1 Gishki monster from your deck to your hand, and during the end phase, if you control a water ritual monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard to set 1 Aquamirror spell or trap directly from your deck or graveyard, except for Focused Aquamirror. So while you can add back the Aquamirrors with this card, I'm running the Aquamirror Illusion as just another special summon option, which I'll go over when I get to the trap lineup. And also 3 copies of Salvage. One of my favorite plays still with the deck is just being able to open up cards like Gishki Shadow, Vision, use both Vision and Shadow to add the needed ritual and spell to my hand, activating Salvage to then add back the 2 cards again to either reuse or have for the cost for the ritual play. And 2 copies of Surface. You target a level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face-up defense. So the fish target will once again most likely be Grimness or Abyss, or you can even go for the Gishki Vision if it's the only other target, since it is a sea serpent. Just a Monster Reborn special summon target for more in the graveyard, with the last of these spells being 1 copy of the actual Monster Reborn and the 1 Call by the Grave for more graveyard shutdown of any of our opponent's plays, with the only trap that we run in the deck being the 1 copy of Aquamirror Illusion. Once again, as I said before, it can be set up from our deck directly with Focused Aquamirror, being able to banish this card from our our graveyard. Aquamirror Illusion, you special summon one Gishki ritual monster from your hand. It cannot attack and is returned to the hand during the end phase. So let's say you have the Naramanus on the field and you use the monster negate effect. You could set the illusion the following turn, activate Naramanus, bouncing it to the hand to negate the effect of your opponent's card, and then also shuffle it back as well, activating the Aquamirror Illusion, summoning out the Naramanus back onto the field, and then from there you have another monster negate with the ritual monster you set up thanks to this card. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck for the Xyz monsters. One copy of Gustav Max, one Super Dora Cannon, and the one Sky Palace Gongora die. You have burn damage with Gustav, defense with Dora, and the Gongora die for destruction power against your opponent, all being rank 10 monsters you can go into. And I would say the rank 10 plays are some of the easier ones to do in the deck, just with Naramanus giving us that level 10 resource from the graveyard for us to then overlay into. And then also the rank 4 Xyz monsters being the one Gaga Cowboy, one Exciton Knight, the one Baguska, and the one Abyss Dweller, along with the one Zeus to overlay on any of the Xyz monsters that we also run in the deck, with our Link monsters being one Area, the Water Charmer Gentle, one Marine Cess, Coral Anemone, one Miss Starboy, one Nightmare Phoenix, one IP Masquerena, one Nightmare Unicorn, and then lastly the one Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, for just all the monster swarm we can do in this deck to set up some of our bigger Link monsters for more monster negation against our opponents. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I stated before, the search and setup is very important in the deck. So whether you already have them in your hand or you just go for your summon of your Gishki Grimness, you can then use Grimness for the summon of your Gishki Abyss onto the field. And then when this card is summoned, you'll have your additional search. So then you can add to your hand your Gishki Shadow. You can then go for the Shadow discard to then add to your hand the Gishki Aquamirror. And then also for the special summon restriction, you just can't declare attacks aside from with ritual monsters, but you could go for a Link 2 play to then summon out onto the field your Marine Cess, Coral Anemone. You can target a water monster with 15 or less attack in your graveyard, special summon it to a zone this card points to. So then you're locked into water monsters with this special summon, but then you can use the effect to summon back your Abyss to the field. Abyss will resolve once more. This will add your last card you need, which is your Gishki Vision. Then you can send the Vision to summon or at least search for the Gishki Naramanus. You have just from the one card in your hand the option for the monsters on the field, but then you also have the search and setup for your Aquamirror and your Naramanus, which you would search for this Aquamirror, but if your opponent has the monster on the field, if the monster for the special summon from the hand or field whose total levels equal the ritual monster or tribute one face-up monster your opponent controls, you would search for the Necromirror, because then you could just have the two monsters in your hand ready to go, activating it and using your opponent's resource to then summon out the Naramanus, which the Naramanus would then be able to summon out one additional monster onto the field. And since you went for the anemone play, once again, you are locked into water monsters for the play, but you at least then have the option for one additional link using these two monsters, wanting to save one of the Gishki monsters, preferably one you can use again the following turn as a bounce back for the negation of the hand. So you'll bounce the Naramanus back to your hand, and then you can use the additional monsters on our field for a more of a power boost to those cards also. Then having the negate, the additional power boost, and the search back power if your opponent were to send your Coral Anemone to then add back the Gishki monster from your graveyard to your hand also. One of the other ones that I mentioned is the use of your focused Aquamirror, adding a Gishki monster from your deck to hand. So then you'll have the initial setup as I mentioned before, and then you'll resolve with the monster on the field if your opponent has that monster resource. Otherwise, when you use the ritual play, you'll just need that one additional monster that can count as the entire tribute in your hand to use to summon out Naramanus. And then you can use the focused Aquamirror to banish this card, and then being able to set the Aquamirror Illusion to your field, which will give you on the following turn a negation of your opponent's card by bouncing the Gishki ritual monster back to your hand, and then being able to use your Aquamirror Illusion to summon this card back out onto the field also. You also have the power to rely on the additional ritual plays. Let's say you have your Naramonis, your Zealgigus, and then the ritual spell of choice being Aquamir. You will then need to have the one additional monster to use as the resource for the summon, so you can use your Grimness or any other monster for that summon to then have the additional ritual play. So you'll summon out the Grimness using the Grimness to summon out an Abyss. The Abyss will add Shadow, and then you'll discard the Shadow to add one additional Aquamir to your hand. You will then activate Aquamir using Grimness for the full ritual play of your Zeal. If you wanted to go for the additional risk of a draw, there's always the chance you'll draw something useful off the 1,000 paid for Zealgigus. You'll then have the last two cards in your hand being Aquamir and Naramonis, activating it using Zealgigus for the entire tribute of your Naramonis, and then Naramonis will activate, resetting your Zealgigus on the field. Since it's only a soft once per turn, you can pay another 1,000 to get a potential draw to your hand. So that's two cards off of the Zealgigus play for the cost of 2,000 life points. And then the following turn, you have the bounce power for Naramonis to return the ritual monster of choice back to your hand for you to reuse. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Once again, I always love updating the Gishki deck. It's one of my favorites in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I always love when I can make some changes to it. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.